one. Today we have a special guest with us. Her name is Isabel. How you doing?
Hi.
She has some very important information to share with you. And I'm going to let her go ahead and do most of the talking because it is so strong, so powerful. You don't want to miss this. Set your calendar for the date. The date is Friday, October 23rd. So mark down your calendar. Before we tell you anything about it, I'm going to let you know right now. You do not want to miss this event.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to come here and talk to you and your audience about the Coastal Bend Social Forum.
Okay. So exactly what is the Coastal Bend Social Forum?
So it's a group of individuals from the community. I work at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. I'm a professor of sociology there, and there are a couple of professors from Del Mar College, and there's some community members who come together and we basically plan this event. It's been going on, I think this is either our 5th or 6th social forum that we've had every 2 years. Wow. We have this, it's actually, this year it's a 2-day event. So October 23rd is the keynote address at Del Mar College, Del Mar College's Richardson Auditorium. And then on Saturday is a day-long event with panels and discussions that are related to social issues that are happening in our community, but also the nation at large.
Okay, now this year, who's your special guest?
Our special guest is Dolores Huerta. She's the co-founder of the United Farm Workers Movement, and she's won the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Barack Obama awarded it to her in 2012. Yes. So she's an amazing woman who's done incredible things and has been able to mobilize communities so that they can enhance their life chances.
Okay. Now on that day, you have several things set that are going to take place. What are some of the things that are going to be taking place?
So on Friday, Dolores Huerta is doing a keynote address, and she will be talking about organizing. And so that was one of the things with the Coastal Bend Social Forum. We bring up social issues that are really important to the community. But in the past, one of the things that we've really struggled with was, well, now that we know this information, what do we do about it? And so on Saturday, what we're doing is a day-long event starting at 9 o'clock in the morning all the way to 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we're having what are, I guess they're panels and concurrent sessions where we talk about specific topics that are much broader. So for example, the first panel, Dolores Huerta will be coming back the next day.
Wow.
And we will have a steel worker from Sherwin Alumina. Remember, they've been locked out for a year now. Yes. So we'll have a worker from there. We're going to have a labor historian, and we're also going to have Becky Moeller, a former president of the AFL-CIO, the Texas chapter. So we're going to be talking about labor issues from 9 to 10:15. And Dolores Huerta helped organize farm workers, and back in the 1960s, she was able to organize Filipinos and Mexicans, whites, farm workers in a way that they were able to break what the farmers were doing to the workers. They were pitting the different racial and ethnic groups against each other. And for 5 years, she and Cesar Chavez were able to organize a community so that they could really win some labor protections that were afforded to white people back in the 1930s. So she's an amazing woman. I'm so excited. So we're having that panel in the morning. And then following that, we're having 3 concurrent sessions from 10:30 to 11:20. And we're going to be talking about hunger and homelessness in Corpus Christi. There's also the cannabis reform movement, which most people know as the legalization of marijuana. But we're also having the Black Lives Matter panel, which I'm really also very excited about. That'll be addressing issues around police brutality.
Okay. So. Now the hungry and homeless, is that a big issue here in Corpus Christi?
Absolutely. Food insecurity is a major issue. And the city has been really looking at homelessness as a crime. I've been seeing, like, if you watch what happens in city council and the discussions that we're having, it seems like it's following a national trend about the criminalization of homelessness. They don't want people feeding people by the city hall. They were talking about moving services all into one area, it's kind of removing them from spaces as opposed to really kind of dealing with what's making people homeless and what's making people hungry. And so we're having Actually, Patty Clark from Metro Ministries talk about those issues. So.
Oh, great, because I'm working on a program called I'm Not a Thief, I'm Just a Beggar.
Mm-hmm.
It's like anybody could be in a situation.
Absolutely.
And before you start judging people out there, you don't know their story.
Mm-hmm.
He could have lost his whole family and everything. So before you come down on somebody out there who is homeless and begging for something, think about it. That could be you out there.
Right. Absolutely. And I definitely think too, it's especially with homelessness, what we tend to do is we tend to make them invisible. So we don't make eye contact with them. We don't know their stories. We assume the absolute worst about them when really, if we think about what's going on, I mean, there's affordable housing that's issues. There's about, issues around living wages, real job opportunities. I mean, there are mental health issues. Even if you think about what's been going on, we've been at war really for like the last 15 years, sending people off to combat zones. I mean, that's a moral hazard, and
yes.
I think we don't deal with those kinds of issues. And homelessness and drug addiction is something that I think manifests out of that. And if we really want to fix those things, we have to stop blaming the people that are in those circumstances, but trying to understand what are the forces that actually led them to the situation that they're in.
Right. Also, I know you're talking about Black Lives Matter. I see on TV and everything where that's a big thing going on. And this is my first time hearing about it in Corpus Christi. Mm-hmm. So how important is that?
Well, I really, this issue around how we make our communities safe is an important one. The city very much supports what's called the broken windows policy, which is you aggressively police minor infractions that aren't really about crime, but they're about the appearance of disorder. So, if you've got people who you perceive to be loitering, or if you have, you have people just walking, I know that there was a 16-year-old not too long ago who was jaywalking. He had gone to the store for his mother and was crossing the street, not in an appropriate place, and police officers accosted him, and they wound up handcuffing him and tasing him. He was a 16-year-old. They did it right in front of his house. And it's the presumption, right? It's the presumption that that young kids of color are up to no good, and if they're outside walking around, they can't be doing it for a purpose. So they can't just walk freely. And we don't really hear about those things, but those things happen all the time. And the fact that it's invisible, and that it doesn't get covered in the media, or those violations of people's civil rights, doesn't mean, just because we don't hear about it on television doesn't mean it doesn't happen here. It happens all too often. And I think we're really at a moment in our society where we need to have these conversations about how do we look at people of color, how do we look at young people, how do we look at particular neighborhoods, because they don't do that kind of thing in gated communities. They don't do that kind of thing in communities that are deemed good neighborhoods. They label a neighborhood and then they police it in a qualitatively different way. And that really just kind of points to a whole bunch of problems around racism and classism, and really the criminalization of our youth, especially our male youth, and African Americans especially.
Okay, so if you ever have a problem with the law enforcers here in Corpus Christi, give us a call and we'd be happy to cover your story of the event. Now also, you're going to break for lunch. We're
going to break for lunch, and this is really exciting too. A&M Corpus Christi has a group of students who are who received a scholarship, and they perform. They're called the Lichtenstein Quartet, and that group is actually volunteering to play music during that time, so that you can have lunch there and enjoy some nice music. And then after that, we're going to have a second round of panels in the afternoon that are also really very exciting. Should I talk about this?
You can.
Okay. The first panel is called Detention Rights or Human Rights, and that panel is going to actually be addressing the detention centers that have popped up all over the country. And they recently made national news. Last summer, there were a whole bunch of children who had come over and that were being housed in detention centers. And I believe that really what broke the story was young children were being treated as prisoners and just given really meager And there was no beds for them to sleep on. They were just given really light sheets. The facilities were really cold, but they didn't have adequate clothing. So we have these detention centers that are all over the country, and men, women, children, infants are being housed in them for years in some cases, and they're not getting their cases being heard. And so we actually had a Del Mar professor who's a social worker, Olivia Lopez was her name, who was hired by the current detention center in Carson City to go do social work in those spaces. And they weren't allowing her to do the work that she needed to do to serve the people. They wanted her really kind of just to do the paperwork so that it appeared that way. And she wound up being a whistleblower. She reported what was going on in the detention center. She was called to Congress to testify. And because of that, they're looking into the practices that are taking place in those institutions. And so we're going to have a panel where she's going to be talking. We're also going to have an attorney from the ACLU who will be talking about prison rights. Prison rights are human rights. And then we're also going to be having a woman named Genesette from Get Equal. She's an undocumented transgender woman who also brings up some issues around identity, undocumented status, and the double vulnerability that people face when they're being institutionalized and not recognized for how they perceive themselves, how they self-identify. So.
Oh wow! Now this is going to be the 25th and the 26th.
The 23rd and the 24th.
Okay, Friday and Saturday. So
Friday's just an intro. It's basically just Dolores Huerta talking about organizing, and then an introduction for what's going to be taking place on Saturday. Okay. And then Saturday is going to be a whole day event. I mean, you can come and go as you please, but there's going to be a lot of stuff going on in the spaces. We're going to have another round of concurrent sessions after the panel from 1:30 to. Oh, and actually, this one's really cool too. We're going to have a panel from 1 to 2:15, and then from 2:30 to 3:20, there's another 3 breakout sessions. Mm-hmm. One of them is about with Eddie Canales, who's from the South Texas Human Rights Project, which is our center. And he's the gentleman from Falfurrias who does the water stations in the desert for the migrants. Wow. And he's also worked with the Texas legislature to change laws so that, every year, because of the policing that happens at the border, migrants move through the desert to try to cross over, and a lot of them wind up, dying from heat and dehydration. And so he's been working with people to help get those remains identified and then connected back to their family members.
Wow. Okay, now, since there's so many things going on that day, is there a website they can go to see what time each event going to take place?
Well, Del Mar College has a website that's got everything about what's happening on there, because it's actually at Del Mar College's East Campus, where the Richardson Performance Hall is, and then the Wolf Recital Hall, and then there's classrooms in there that we'll be using. So it's there. There's also a Facebook page. And there's a website, but I don't know the website's address.
Now for Facebook, what can they go for Facebook?
They can just type in Coastal Bend Social Forum.
Okay.
So in that little search box, and they'll see it. So.
And once again, what time is that on a Friday?
On Friday, the doors actually open at 5 o'clock, but the event will actually begin at 6. So, and it's free and open to the public. It's first come, first serve. We have 1,700 seats in the performance hall at Del Mar College's Richardson Performance Hall. But it's first come, first serve. And we have people who, students from South Texas College down in the valley are actually we're doing fundraisers so they could rent a bus and come up. We've got students from Eagle Pass. We've got schools from around the rural community who, they really know how important Dolores Huerta was in terms of increasing the life chances of farm workers, and all their families. And so we've got maybe like 300 or 400 students coming that have said that they're going to come from rural communities just so they can participate.
And they can also go to YouTube, can't they, and look up.
I don't know. Is it on YouTube?
I mean, as far as your guest speaker.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, she's an amazing woman, because she was really active in the 60s and the 70s in terms of the farm workers. But even after that, She was committed to increasing the representation of women, especially women of color, in political offices at the state, local, and national levels. I mean, she's in her 80s now, but she was a door knocker at the last election cycle. She participated in a 13-mile march to raise awareness of social issues. So she's just amazing, and she's given a lot of talks. So yeah, you could Google her and you can see and hear her awesomeness.
Okay. So we want to thank you for being our guest today. And is there a phone number they can call for more information?
Absolutely. They can contact Dr. Klein from Del Mar College. Her number is 698-1629. They can also contact me. My name is Isabel Araiza, and I'm at 825-3936.
Okay. Once again, we want to thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you.